Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to ask the Minister for Infrastructure which provision of Section 47, 49 or 52 of the Housing Act 1955 or Section 4(1) of the Landlord and Tenant Act 1954 enables the Department to enact a department policy with which local authorities are required to comply.
Minister to reply, Mr. Harmer.
Mr. President, I thank the honourable member for his question. Section 47, subsection 1 of the 1955 Act provides that the general management of the houses provided by the local authority is vested in the authority and it may set charges for the occupation of such houses subject to the Department's approval. This subsection is in itself subject to Section 47A of the 1955 Act and Schedule 3 to the Housing Miscellaneous Provisions Act 1976. As the honourable member will be aware, the schedule relates to the initial selection for an allocation of public sector housing, in respect for which the Department may choose to adopt an all-Ireland policy subject to the approval of Tynwald. The policy adopted by Dolgi and subsequently approved by the Council of Ministers on the 17th of January 2002 is deemed to be an all-Ireland policy which was approved in this way. See paragraph 6, subsection 6 of Schedule 3 of the Housing Miscellaneous Provisions Act 2011, paragraph 1A, subsection 3, Schedule 3 to 1976 Act requires a local authority to comply with an all-Ireland policy adopted in this way. Section 49 does not enable the Department to make policy in respect of rents and rebates which are fit to be fixed by a local authority. However, as both matters are subject to the Department's approval, clearly it has some control over how they are practically applied. Section 52 simply enables the Department to make payments to local authorities in a manner approved by Tynwald. The honourable member will recall from an answer provided in August 2019, this is presently in the form set out in the Tynwald Resolution made 20th October 1999 and commonly known as the deficiency payment. Section 4, subsection 1 of the Land and Tenant Act simply defines the concept of tenancy for years as nothing whatsoever to do with the adoption of a policy on the allocation of houses. Ultimately, an authority not wishing to follow the Tynwald policy can do so by stepping outside the deficiency process. Of course, any authority doing so would need to comply with the legislation and be mindful of any impact on their tenants and potentially their ratepayers. As much of this information is technical in nature, I'm more than happy to discuss with the honourable member this and any other matter in much more granular detail with officers from the Department.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. That's quite a detailed answer from the Minister. I thank him for that. It's interesting he says that the Landlord and Tenant Act actually isn't relevant to Department policy. I've asked previously in this place which powers the Department has in respect of policy. That was specifically mentioned. So I'm glad that he's clarified the situation in respect of that. The reason I'm asking this question is actually quite straightforward. The Department has a fixed-term tenancy policy which does a number of things, one of which is it means tests tenants. The Minister in his answer actually didn't make any reference to any powers that allow the Department to means test tenants other than those that are subject to Tynwald approval. So my question really for the Minister is, what is the legal virus for means testing tenants under a fixed-term tenancy policy? The management of authorities' houses clause that he referenced before, which requires approval of the Department, only makes reference to reasonable charges the authority can make, makes no reference to the ability to means test people. In fact, none of the provisions the Minister has outlined, either in his previous answer or in his answer just now, give the Department the legal virus to means test people in accordance with any Department policy. So I'd like some clarification from the Minister. What is the legal basis for his means testing of these tenants?
Mr. Harmer.
Thank you. If I may, Mr. President, I don't know if the learned Attorney General can...
I don't think that would... Sorry,
Mr. President, it's outside the scope of the actual question which was asked, upon which the Minister will acknowledge. I have advised with reference to the detailed answer he gave. I'm more than happy to take that question away, sir, and I will answer it in writing if I may.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is why I was saying the long... Yes.
Clearly, you have asked a question which is beyond the actual scope of what is here. I suggest that you table a question for the learned attorney. That would be perfectly acceptable way of getting that information, which, sir, you are not in a position to provide, really. Okay,
I have another supplementary.
further supplementary.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm more than happy to do that, and I will table such a question. So my follow-up for the Minister then, in respect of enacting a department policy with which local authorities are required to comply, he's outlined that the local authorities are required to comply in respect of the charges they may make. That's quite clearly set out there. They're required to comply in respect of the deficiency payments. I'm still struggling to understand where the department gets the powers to issue a policy with which the local authorities must comply in respect of things like the length of someone's tenancy, the frequency with which a tenancy must be reviewed. None of that was mentioned in his answer. So again, we have a fixed-term tenancy policy that deals with the allocation of housing to tenants across the whole island, which, according to the Minister's own words, an all-island policy is subject to Tynwald approval, that has not had Tynwald approval. So, again, Minister, which one of these specific provisions that you set out in answer to a previous question actually gives you the legal powers to issue this particular policy and force local authorities to comply with it?
Thank you, Mr. President. I'll have to come back to the member on that question. What I would say is that local authorities, the actual fixed-term tenancies are working well. Local authorities are very, very supportive, and a lot of this has come from them. As I say, some of the things that have been said actually haven't taken place, and it's working well. But on these technical issues, I will have to come back to the member.